Good morning, everyone, fellow YouTubers. This is Atilla Yeşilada, and you are at Real Turkey channel. We're covering interesting Turkey stories. This is not news, this is analysis, real analysis, as real as it gets. In this episode, I want to talk about Turkey's bizarre alliance with Russia and Iran. Why is it bizarre? I mean, we're neighbors, and there should be nothing more natural than being friends. Unfortunately, this is not so because of historical reasons, which I call three elephants in a crowded room syndrome. As you watch this video, look up a map of the region, Google it or Yandex it, I don't care, whichever search engine you use, and you will see these three regional giants, Russia, Iran, and Turkey, have blocked each other's expansion since time eternal. For instance, Iran blocks Turkey's access to Central Asia and, towards India. Historically, it has been so. Turkey blocks Russia's access to Mediterranean and to what they call the warm seas. And Russia blocks Turkey's access, to the Caucasus and to the Turkic republics. For that reason, the three countries have fought endless wars, and at the end, they have decided to be frenemies. They no longer fight, but there is polite disagreement among them. Russia and Iran understand this regional rivalry very well. They don't do Turkey any favors, but for reasons of his own, Mr. Erdogan doesn't understand that. I will speculate here. I think Erdogan refuses to acknowledge the fact that Turkey, Iran, and Russia will never truly be friends because he doesn't like Israel, and he certainly doesn't like United States. One reason he doesn't like United States, again I speculate, is he probably thinks the 2016 aborted coup was engineered or inspired by elements in the American deep state. It was certainly organized by the Turkish pastor living in the United States, Mr. Fethullah Gülen, but the idea or the organizational power behind it was, I don't know, CIA. It's easy to blame CIA for everything, including the killing of Elvis. We all know Elvis was killed, and by CIA. So he really has this hatred against the United States, and he seeks refuge or strength in the United States, in Russia. Again, Erdogan, like many Turks, are an anti-Semite, and because he doesn't like Israel, he prefers an alliance with Iran. More recently, another reason has been added for his strong alliance with Iran. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mr. Mohammed bin Salman, has a Saudi journalist killed in Saudi embassy in Istanbul. I mean, that's the biggest insult to any nation. I forgot the name of the journalist, Khashoggi, Mr. Khashoggi. He was dismembered in the most gruesome way, and this is not my personal opinion, this is from UN accounts. And he refuses to take personal responsibility for that. I mean, any country that has been subjected to such an insult would hate Saudi Arabia, and that has added salt to Mr. Erdogan's wounds, as a result of which he now has a deeper alliance with Iran to hurt Saudi Arabia. Nevertheless, though, such alliances do not have an economic or political basis, and they are most likely to hurt Turkey's national interests and economic development, not even in the long term, but in the short term. Allow me to illustrate. For instance, in Syria, Mr. Erdogan clearly prefers to ally with Russia rather than United States. I mean, AKP and most of Turkey is now rejoicing that United States is out of Syria And they are certain that Mr. Erdogan would sort out all the Syria-related problems with Mr. Putin when he flies to Sochi on 22nd of October. He won't. Russia is a patron of Mr. Assad, and Russia wants Turkey out of Syria. If Turkey gets out of Syria, Erdogan will get stuck with roughly 4 million Syrian refugees who will never return home, because the first reason they left Syria is Assad's oppression and brutality. And Mr. Erdogan's AKP party voters hate Syrian refugees, probably for the wrong reasons. But there is a deeper reason why the alliance with Iran and Russia don't work. If Assad wins the war in Syria, essentially Syria will become a satrapy, a colony of Iran. And Iran will use Syria to put additional pressure on Saudi Arabia and Israel. You may say, well, that's their problem. Why do you care? I care because Iran controlling Syria means that they will also control Turkey's trade routes to Jordan, to Egypt, to all the Sunni countries, Sunni Arab countries, and North Africa. It's not that they will stop our trade, but in this part of the world, when you are crossing a neighboring country, you pay several bribes to warlords or local strongmen. So Iran will collect these bribes. They will have the capacity to shut off our trade if we don't do well with them. Secondly, there is a huge reconstruction pie in Syria, probably to the tune of $200 billion. And Iran will control who gets these tenders, and Turkey will not get anything out of that. The damage, continues. I mean, because of Erdogan's personal hatred against the United States, Turkey decided to buy S-400 anti-missile systems, which NATO doesn't like. NATO countries buy from NATO arsenal or buy NATO-made weapons for the simple reason that if a war breaks out between NATO and Russia or China or whatever, countries will help each other with ammunition and weapons. If you have a Russian-made weapon, NATO can't supply parts or ammunition for that. So if these weapons are activated, Turkey may be completely shut off from the NATO maneuvers, NATO war games, NATO planning, essentially from NATO. Again, United States sanctions will come to effect. In a more broad sense, Turkey's deepening alliance with Iran and Russia raises fears in the Western bloc that Turkey is changing its democratic orientation and becoming more Eastern, more Oriental, rather than secular-minded. And that really is a major problem for the business community, because 50% of our exports go to EU, 65% of our foreign direct investment comes from EU, most of our tourism is from our OECD countries, and we get almost all of our foreign financing from Western countries. So the perception that Turkey is no longer part of the Western bloc, or Turkey could be sanctioned by Western countries, creates a chill in the business atmosphere. We have seen examples of that in 2018, August, when the United States threatened Turkey because Turkey refused to release American pastor Mr. Andrew Brunson. Turkish lira sunk by 30% versus the dollar. Turkish banks could not roll over their syndicated loans until the sanctions threat passed away. Since Erdogan turned more authoritarian and the chances of Turkey becoming a member of EU faded away, FDI from EU countries dropped very significantly. tourism from EU countries has declined up until last year when, Turkish prices declined so much that at least the poor European tourists returned. So, in many ways, Turkey's alliance with Russia and Iran is not purely a political choice, but an economic choice that's extremely damaging to Turkey's interests. Also, it doesn't make political sense since Russia and Iran are really not doing any favors to Turkey. Well, you listened to another episode of Real Turkey Channel, and this was your host, Atilla Yeşilara. If you liked it, subscribe. If you liked it, share it with your friends or anyone who does business with Turkey. Goodbye now.